Heart to Heart Catholic Media Ministry, in partnership with Bellarmine Jesuit Retreat House, presents A Retreat with St. Peter, Growing from Sinner to Saint, preached by Father J. Michael Sparough, S.J. I'm Dev Kennedy, and I'm delighted to welcome you back for part one of Father Michael's sixth and final retreat presentation, The Commission. Do you love me? In this final talk, Father Michael offers another imaginative reflection, this time based on the final chapter of John's Gospel. Let's listen.
So the original ending to John's Gospel is Thomas's tearful proclamation of faith, my Lord and my God. But there's this other beautiful addition to the text, John chapter 21, and the speculation is that it was probably written after Peter died because it predicts Peter's death. And it's this powerful scene of, as Peter had denied Jesus 3 times, Jesus gives him the opportunity 3 times to be able to publicly declare his faith and his love for the Lord. But notice that when he asks that question, do you love me? And then he gives that famous response, feed my lambs, feed my sheep, tend my sheep, feed my lambs. It's not just a Jesus and me relationship. It's, if you love me, then it has to be expressed in actions. The very close of the spiritual exercises is what St. Ignatius calls a contemplation to attain divine love, or a contemplation on divine love. And he has 2 prefacing comments. One, the first is that love expresses itself not just in words, but in deeds. Don't just tell me you love me, show me. Show me with the daily actions of your lives. And the second preface to that meditation is that love consists in a mutual sharing between the lover and the beloved. The nature of love, it's a mutual giving and receiving. The Lord is the one who loves us first. Jesus says, it was not you who chose me, it was I who chose you, and I commissioned you to go out and to bear fruit. I loved you first, and I'm asking, I'm hoping, I'm praying for a return of that love. Not just with pious words, but with the daily actions of your life. Then he goes on, and it's actually a series of meditations within a larger meditation. He says, reflect on the gifts and the blessings that you've received in your life. What are the gifts and the talents that God has given you? And as you sit with that, what response would a reasonable person make? And that's the Suscipe prayer. It's that famous prayer of St. Ignatius of take, Lord, receive. You've given me all of this, and now what I want to do is make a return to you in love. You've given me everything. I want to make a return of love as well. Now, those words are easy to say, very difficult to live. If you think about what we just prayed, it's, Lord, I want to put my whole life in your hands. I want to surrender myself. I want to trust you. Everything that you've given me, I want to give it to you to be used for the glory of your name. That's where the spiritual exercises ends, reflecting on all the ways in which God is blessing us, God is laboring for us, God is dwelling in creation. Think about those realities, and then what return of love do I want to give the Lord in return? In reflecting on these realities in John chapter 21, I wrote this poem a number of years ago. Peter, do you love me? I believe when I pass through the doorway of death to stand before you in the throne room of your mercy, you will ask of me only what you have asked of Peter. But the question now will bear my name. Do you love me, my beloved? The deeds of my life will speak on my behalf. They will whisper in disgrace or shout truth to the heavens in a language that cannot lie. I will crouch cowering alone in my selfishness, or stand straightened, bravened by your sheep, lambs I have learned to feed and tend in love. God, who is love, teach me to love. Not a here today, gone tomorrow love, but a love that will last the distance. Not a gooey, sentimental, wear it on your heart sleeve love, but a love that will lead me to my cross and allow me to stretch out my arms and there be stripped naked, unafraid. Lord, help me to be willing to be led to where I do not want to go. For unless I follow you, I can never truly be your discipled friend. Teach me, Jesus, to love as you love me. Amen. It took a long time for Peter to grow in discipleship to the point where he was ready and willing to lay down his life. I read that imaginative interpretation of what Peter might have been feeling on the night that he denied him. Alone, cold, without his sword, without Jesus physically there, without his fellow disciples, he cracked and ended up denying Jesus. But the tradition is that Peter journeyed to Rome to preach the gospel, and there he was imprisoned by Nero, who hated Christians, and eventually he was crucified upside down along with his wife. The tradition is that Peter said, "I'm not worthy to be crucified like my master crucified me upside down." Just look at that journey. Here's the guy who was afraid on the night that Jesus is crucified. He denies him, he runs away. And then he's strengthened by the gift of the Holy Spirit. He grows in faith over the years, and he willingly goes to the belly of the beast. He goes to the heart of the Roman Empire with this vicious tyrant that is Nero, who's on the throne, who burns down half of Rome to make room for his palace, and then blames it on the Christians. Peter willingly accepts that crucifixion. This past summer, I was praying over this text, John 21, and was inspired, as I had done the previous summer, to write an imaginative interpretation of what Peter might have been experiencing during the story that is told in John chapter 21. I'd like to share that story with you now. Do you love me? I have to admit I was discouraged. Perhaps I had no reason to be discouraged, but reason doesn't have anything to do with it. I missed Jesus. I miss the good old days of tramping around the countryside with Jesus telling stories, sticking it to the Pharisees, and healing people left and right. But now he's gone. Well, not really. He was raised from the dead. We've all seen him twice, except for Thomas, who was late to the party and saw him only once. And he bestowed a gift of peace. I felt that peace. I felt forgiven. But now what am I to do with my time? Our Jewish leaders are still claiming that he stole the body. And it seems that anytime we try to speak about Jesus in public, one of us gets flogged and thrown into jail. Not that I'm afraid of speaking out, it's just that, I don't know, sometimes I just feel lost without our leader. And I'm supposed to be the leader, the rock. But what am I supposed to do? It was all so much clearer when Jesus was with us, telling us what to do. Even though we sometimes had no idea of what he was talking about or misunderstood what he was trying to teach us, still when he was with us, it felt like we knew what we were supposed to do and everything would work out. Even at the time when he was asleep in the back of the boat and a violent storm came out of nowhere, we thought we were goners. But we knew that if we could just wake him up, everything would be fine. And we did. And he calmed the storm, and it was fine. Except that he bawled us out for not trusting that he would take care of us, even when he was asleep. Oh, those were the good old days. But now that Jesus has been crucified, died, buried, and risen, We never know when he's going to show up or if he's going to show up again. He seems to like to surprise us. I must admit, I don't like surprises. I was a fisherman before he called me, and we fishermen like a routine. It's hard work, but if you do what you know, it usually works out with a good catch. Speaking of fishing, that gives me an idea. Since a bunch of us apostles are just sitting around these days without much to do, why don't we go fishing? So I ask around, who wants to go fishing with me? Matthew looks at me like I've been out too long in the sun. And Philip asks, didn't Jesus tell you you'd be fishing for people, not fish? Yes, but he didn't say I couldn't catch some fish in between catching people. And unless you have a better idea, I'm not sure how we're going to fill our bellies when our supplies run low. Philip only raised his eyes toward heaven. I knew what he was getting at. Yes, Jesus multiplied the loaves and the fishes and changed water into wine, but where is he now? They could see I was starting to lose my patience, so no one said anything until I asked again. I'm going fishing. Who wants to come with me? James and John were the first to respond. That didn't surprise me, because they were former fishermen, just like me. But then Thomas said he was game. And that encouraged Nathaniel to chime in, and then Jude and Simon volunteered as well. Great, we'll head out as soon as the sun sets. We're going to fish at night? Asked Jude, who'd never been fishing before. Yeah, the fish come to the surface at night because it's cooler. Once the sun comes up and the days start to warm, they dive deep, and it's much harder to catch them. Trust me, I know this lake like the back of my hand. I'll take us all to my favorite spots. James spoke up. Guys, he's right. Peter knows what he's talking about. But how do we see where we're going at night? Asked Thomas. John spoke up next. Unless it's cloudy, which it isn't, the starlight reflects off the water, and we're blessed tonight with a full moon. So it'll be especially easy to navigate around the lake. Any more questions? I asked. But they could tell I was losing my patience, so it was decided. I gave them a warning, which was more of a command. You may want to catch a few winks before we set out. A few hours later, the 7 of us were at the shoreline. Although I had long ago sold my boats and nets, I was able to borrow a boat and nets from some old fishing buddies who were happy to hear that I had not given up fishing forever. Let's see if you still have it in you, Simon. They couldn't resist razzing me. It's Peter. Jesus gave me a new name. I'm Peter. Okay, Peter. Be sure to share some of your big catch with us in the morning. I'd be happy to. And thanks for the boat. And the nets, they hollered. And don't forget to clean them before you return them. I pretended not to hear them, putting my hand to my ears and shaking my head, and with that I joined James and John. We discussed the best place to head to first. As we pushed off the shore of Capernaum out into the water, the rush of familiar memories came back. For years, this was how I had made my living. It was hard work, but it was good, honest work. But tonight, it was about enjoying ourselves, catching some fish, putting a few coins in our money bag, and bringing back home something to eat with our families. John was right. It was a cloudless night. The stars were bright and the moon was full. The air was cool but not cold. And there was just the slightest hint of a breeze. This is a perfect night for fishing, said John. They don't come any better than this. I think we're in for a big catch tonight, I exclaimed. James, John, and I gave a few instructions to the other 4 who knew nothing about fishing, but they were eager to learn, and we worked well together. After all, we'd been together for the last 3 years, learning from Jesus how not to irritate each other. Now, these nets that we're using tonight are called trammel nets. I tried to be as clear in my explanation as was necessary. And as you can see, these are 3-layered nets which will set in the water. Fish can pass easily through the larger mesh of the outer layers, but they get tangled in the finer mesh of the inner net. And once they're tangled, said Jude, and we haul them in, I said, smiling, thinking of these nets filled with plump, delicious fish. I served as helmsman of the boat, guiding us toward a spot where I knew the fish were most likely to be. We had 6 oarsmen, 3 on either side. I called out a steady beat of stroke, 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 and our boat glided quickly and quietly across the water. You haven't lost your touch? I thought to myself. I could almost taste the delicious cooked fish in my mouth. Ease off the oars, men. This is the spot. I gave the command. Prepare the nets. And all 6 moved to one side of the boat and began to unfurl the nets, which had been carefully arranged. The boat started to tip dangerously to the side. Lean inward, shouted James. Keep your weight closer to the center of the boat or we'll capsize. He gave the command none too soon, and the boat righted itself. That was close, I exclaimed. I forgot for a moment who I have for a crew. We all laughed. Prepare the nets. James and John showed the rest how to unfurl the nets and let them down into the water. I steered the boat clear of the weighted nets, which were now sinking deep into the water, while the top part of the net stayed near the surface. I spoke in a whisper. Now we must remain silent so we don't scare the fish away. After the nets had sunk and been in the water for some time, I pulled on the net, and they felt like they were filling nicely. I said to my crew that it was time to bring in the nets. Come, fishy, fishy, come to Simon. I noticed my heart was racing in anticipation of a big catch. With quick, even pulls, the 6 of them brought the heavy nets to the surface. But when the last of the nets cleared the water, it was clear that all we caught was seaweed. Seaweed? Shrugged James. I don't remember this lake having so much seaweed in it. Don't be discouraged, men. This sometimes happens. The night is young. Let's clean the nets and try another spot. And I pointed over to a spot about 100 yards away. When the nets were cleaned of the stinking seaweed and were safely stowed, I took my place at the helm once again, and they took to the oars. Stroke, stroke, stroke. The breeze had picked up, and there was now some waves. Nothing to be concerned about, but it did make the rowing more difficult. Ouch! Shouted Thomas as he dropped his oar. What's the matter now? I asked. I wasn't feeling particularly patient. A splinter. I just caught a splinter from this decrepit old oar. I'm afraid that's a hazard of the trade, said John. After a while, you'll develop calluses, and they don't hurt as badly. I'll keep that in mind for the next time, if there is a next time, Thomas replied, as he tried to pluck the splinter from his hand by the dim moonlight. I could tell the novelty of our expedition was beginning to wear off. It wasn't long before we reached my second favorite fishing spot on the lake. There were always at least a few fish to be caught here. You know the routine, I whispered. Lower the nets. And they did. And after a while, the nets seemed to fill, and I gave the signal to haul them up. This time, the nets came up much too quickly because they were empty. No seaweed this time, but still not even a single stinking fish. I knew what was coming next. I thought you said you knew this lake like the palm of your hand, retorted Nathaniel. If this is your idea of a good time, said Jude, I think I'd rather go pound some nails into a wall. Patience, brothers, patience. The fish are playing hide and seek with us, but we'll catch them, you'll see. And I pointed to another favorite spot in the lake. And when we arrived, we let down the nets and hauled them in, but still there were no fish. We rowed from one side of the lake to the other. We rowed and dropped the nets until our backs were aching and our hands, which were not used to this work, were rubbed raw by the rope of the nets. Many hours later, dawn was just beginning to break. And I had to admit defeat. The fish had eluded us. Perhaps I had lost my touch. I could hear in my imagination the taunts of the fishermen who had lent me their boats and their nets. I didn't want to face them. As we headed toward the northwestern shore of the lake at a place called Tagba, we saw a lone figure on a rocky cliff waving to us.
This concludes part one of Father Michael's sixth retreat presentation, The Commission. Do you love me? We'll continue with part two in the next installment of the retreat. We'll close this session with a few quiet moments of reflection, accompanied by an excerpt of the song Feed My Sheep by Michael John Poirier from his album Hello, Lord. As you listen, consider these questions. Have you, like Peter, ever set out in a new direction, become discouraged when difficulties arose, and returned to your former ways? If so, what happened? You know what comes next in the story. Who are the lambs you are called to love, and the sheep you are called to care for?
Wish as I may, wish as I might, I'm all out of reasons to hide. Thought I could run, thought I could fight, but this time I know what you're saying. If you love me, feed my sheep. You pick up your cross and come follow me. If you love me, feed my sheep. Do you love me? Really love me? Feed my sheep. I knew you could tell, I knew you could see the wall I was building inside, sturdy and strong, till you came along and whispered right through my defenses. If you love me, feed my sheep. You pick up your cross and come follow me. If you love me, feed my sheep. Do you love me?